Amanda van Tilburg for BizNews. One of the success stories of land that was transferred back to a community is Makhoba Farms in KwaZulu-Natal, a 10,000-hectare property at the foothills of the Maluti Mountains. With Nestlé's help, it is producing milk for the country, and Inyosi Empowerment has been providing training for the youth in the area to give them the tools to succeed in the workforce. And joining me now is the CEO of Inyosi Empowerment, Evan Jones. Hi Evan, thank you for joining us. You've just had another group of people who finished your course. Can we start off by telling us what Inyosi Empowerment does?
Sure. So Inyosi Empowerment is an enterprise and supply development specialist. So we've been around since 2012. We essentially fund Black-owned businesses, and we do that on behalf of our clients. So we have about 500 companies who've invested with us, and we lend into Black-owned companies. And a couple of years ago, we were introduced to the largest Black-owned dairy supplier to Nestlé. Nestlé is one of our investors, and we went and looked at their farm and their setup. It's called Springfontein Dairy. It's under a Makhoba community trust. We decided to invest into their dairy. It's a really state-of-the-art dairy, and as I said, I think they supplied Nestlé with about 4.5 million litres of milk a year.
Well, tell us about Makhoba Farm. It's situated where? In the Swartberg in KwaZulu-Natal?
In Swartberg. It's actually midway between Kokstad and Underberg, so in the Underberg-Kokstad region.
So this was a farm that was given back by the local community after a land claim?
Yeah, so in the 1950s, they were displaced from their ancestral lands, and they were moved to about 40 kilometers closer to the Lesotho border. And when the new government came in, they petitioned the new government under the land redistribution. I think there was a commission for land redistribution that was set up, and they commissioned the government, and were eventually, there's a whole long process that they went through. They had to determine which beneficiaries, which households, and effectively 1,412 households were identified. That list was promulgated, and the list is kept by the trust and also by the Commission for Land Redistribution. And those households were then provided with about 10,000 hectares that was then bought back from commercial farmers on an arm's length basis. So it's a non-contentious land redistribution claim that was ultimately settled.
And Nestlé helped it to become this successful commercial farm.
Yeah, Nestlé's been hugely instrumental. They initially provided support and guidance largely through the local Underberg depot, so the Nestlé depot. Nestlé then introduced us to the dairy. We did an analysis and realized that they actually wanted to plant lucerne fields. So in a dairy, the cattle can only walk a certain distance. So what you typically do is you farm areas slightly further away, and then you bring the feed to the cattle, and they wanted to plant lucerne land. So we provided them with funding for that. And then once we'd done that, we realized there was quite a big community, 1,400 households. And so we approached Nestlé and asked them whether they could see any way to assist the community. So we were helping in the dairy with funding by Nestlé and other investors, but we thought that they could actually provide assistance into the community. And Nestlé were looking to do the YES program. And so they asked us whether we couldn't combine the two. Is there a way that we could run the YES program and we could help the community? And so effectively what we did is we took about half of the Nestlé YES program. So the Nestlé program was over 200. Initially started at 200, it's a little bit more than that now. And we effectively train 100 youth from that community a year in agripreneurship, in chainsaw security, fencing, all sorts of farm-related activities. This is our fourth cohort, so we've trained around 400 people at the moment.
That sounds an amazing program. So what is the idea, that they work in the community, or that they can take these commercial farming skills and go elsewhere and go and farm?
I'd say it's a bit of everything. Firstly, I think you'll know from your own experience globally, it doesn't matter where you are, your first job is the most difficult job to get, because you walk in and you've got no skills and you've got no experience, and everyone's asking you what experience you've got. And you can't get a job without experience, and you can't get experience without a job. So you're in this catch-22 situation. So the Youth Employment Service, which is the YES program, is, I think, a really brilliant public-private partnership. It gives the companies who participate in it, it boosts their BE scorecard, so there's a benefit there. They pay a 1-year minimum wage towards unemployed youth. So it gives unemployed youth their first job. And the program really every year, so we started obviously, as you do, by kind of brainstorming and figuring out what you think will work. Every year we assess what has worked and what we need to change and who we've used and who we need to, so every year we've tried to refine the program. And the thinking largely is around trying to equip the local youth with skills that they can use either within a farming setting. So we do agripreneurship, we do vegetable farming, chicken farming, we do black wattle and alien wattle or alien vegetation clearing, because that's a big issue. We do fencing. We've got fencing teams. We've got all sorts of things. So quite a number of the people have managed to get jobs in other farms. Some of them have got jobs in suppliers to farmers. Many of them actually work in the dairy, so they rotate through the dairy to get an idea of what it's like to work in a commercial setup. But, with South Africa's unemployment, many of them end up still unemployed, but at least they've had a first job. And if they get asked if they've had a previous job, they can answer yes, and they've got a bit of experience. So, it's certainly by no means the silver bullet, but it's certainly an intervention which we think has resulted in quite a number of the students actually getting jobs.
So what have the reaction been from students that completed the course?
Yeah, I mean, you can imagine to end up being paid for a year to effectively get training and upskilling, and that is a wonderful opportunity. So they are very, very pleased with the outcome. They're grateful for the opportunity. A number of them that have secured jobs. Every year as well, we have a graduation ceremony, which I host along with Nestle, and every single person gets all the certificates, all the different courses that they've completed. They get certificates issued to them so that they've got a body of evidence that shows what they've actually done. Then we elect, this is actually done by my team on the farm, but they select the top female and the top male student, and they get awarded a trophy, which is a floating trophy. Obviously the next year someone else gets awarded and their name gets put on the trophy. But the top male student this year, he also happened to do chainsaw operating, and the company that did the training has offered him a full-time position. So they came to the farm for the graduation to offer him that full-time position, which is just an amazing thing to witness. He was quite, quite emotionally overwrought.
What was interesting about the land restitution program, often it's said that land is given and then there's no help afterwards. Is this a good example of how these people are actually taught how to farm the land commercially?
I think that is the current case. I don't want to claim to have the insights to remedy that situation. I do. If you just think practically, there's a community that's been moved off their lands in 1950, and roughly in 2004 they get their land back. So there's a 50-year hiatus. To try and remedy that in 5 or 10 years, I think is impossible. So I think government has tried to intervene and tried to do land redistribution. I think the process of training farmers is a very long-term process. And so I certainly think that more can be done. The YES program happened to be a plug-in to that. And we've got, in addition to the annual training that we've also identified a handful of people that we think over a longer training period may be able to step into more managerial roles or more leadership roles. But that's a long-term thing that we're busy with. Again, it's not easy. We're clear on what we need to do. We're unclear as to how to do it. So we're obviously trying to do it in a way that makes sense to us. Whether that's ultimately going to achieve the goals and objectives that we've set, that's going to be a function of, a large element of luck, good fortune, the people that we've selected, and the relative randomness of that selection. We've obviously tried to select the people who've appeared to be most likely to us, but we have got successive programs. So, you may get someone who's a late entrant. They may come into the 5th year program, but they may actually be the best person for it, but they're already 5 years late. There's the natural randomness of change, so we're trying to play the cards that we've been dealt. Every year we do try and sit back and analyze what we have done, what's worked, what hasn't worked, and try and finesse it. It's not broken, so it doesn't need to be totally fixed. It can be improved every year.
Yeah, so you tweak as you go along to improve the program. Yeah, it sounds good. So the YES program, is that also funded by the government, or is that just by
the government? No. Inyosi is not. It's actually funded by Nestle. So it's a program set up by government. It offers companies to improve their BE scorecard, but it's paid for by the company. So Nestle pays for it.
What else does Inyosi do?
Companies, for their BE points, the companies invest with us and we lend to black-owned companies. So that's our core business. But we also run YES programs for a number of our clients and investors.
So the Makhoba Farms is just one example of it.
It's probably the project that we're most involved with. Most times the YES program, companies would request that we run the YES program, and we find and place youth into the companies that we funded. So if I take an example of a company that we funded in the Northern Cape, it's a company called Makhoba. They're an electrical contractor. We've placed about, I think, 20 or 30 youth into that company because he runs big programs where he cleans solar farms. So it requires manual labor to do that and labor to do that. So we effectively, or our client, whoever is running that YES program, those jobs are subsidized by that company. So if you take the current minimum wage, let's just say it's 4,000 Rand, it's more than that, but let's say it's 4,000 Rand. If you've got 20 people, that's 80,000 Rand a month, right? That's 960,000 Rand a year.
That's a lot.
Subsidy. It's an enormous amount. So it's a very clever program, actually. And in our environment, it allows us to assist the black-owned borrowers that we've funded. So we've provided them with funding. If we can put YES personnel into their company whom they need, and those YES personnel are paid for by another company, then that effectively is a working capital injection into that company.
What is the rate of youth unemployment in South Africa? What is the latest figures?
We know it's very high. I mean, I think there's this thing about the official and unofficial unemployment rate, but I would think under youth it's very high, at least over 35%, I would think. Maybe much higher than that, yeah.
I think that what's always difficult, what are the official figures? And somebody who sells something on the street might not be regarded as employed.
So there is a lot of, that's a very good point. I do think that people, try and be industrious, but there are also a lot of people who just abandon work. They're just out of work. They just can't work out how they get into employment, so that's a big issue. And in this community, we can see that these programs have certainly helped people realize what it is to be paid, to receive a salary, to work, etc.
Evan Jones from Inyosi Empowerment, thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you very much.